Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, today I'm going to be talking about numbered pins, the Minikins challenge for the month of April, Homeward Fabrics by Natalie Barnes, the Sew Sweetness recipe book, and also Sew Sweetness meetups, quilt patterns by Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I have 2 books for sewing studio organization. I'll be demonstrating how to install strap anchors, and there's a great giveaway at the end. I'm Sarah Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Social Sunday, my weekly sewing chat. Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me for Social Sunday. I see Sarah has her popcorn ready. Another Sarah's watching for Dubai, Natalie from Australia, Diana from Florida, Patricia from New York. Thank you everyone so much for joining me for Social Sunday. As a friendly reminder, just about everything that I talk about during Social Sunday are things that I've purchased myself. So these are not things that I'm getting paid to talk to you about, but just cool things that I found that I'd like to share with you. And everything that I'm scheduled to talk about, I link to in the description. So if you're interested in finding out more about any of the notions, fabrics, books, or projects that I talk about during Social Sunday, just check that link in the description and you can find out more information that way. So this week for the notion of the week, I have to admit I have quite a backlog of notions to talk to you about. So they're all sitting in the sewing room. Like some are pretty cool notions. I'll get to them eventually. This week I wanted to talk about numbered pins. So there's a variety of different shapes and styles of numbered pins out there, but I purchased this particular set and I'm going to jump over to the side camera and show you what they look like. Okay, so these are the numbered pins, and this particular set comes in 2 different boxes. This box has numbers 1 through 10, and this one has numbers 11 through 20. And so this is what they look like. As I mentioned, there's other pins out there on the market with different shapes. These particular pins are shaped like dress forms. So here's there's several pins for each number. Numbers 1 through 5 are at the top of the case. Numbers 6 through 10 are at the bottom, and then the second box. And I thought these would be pretty helpful, maybe for Danny also when he's cutting out his Park Sling backpack fabrics, because you can just go ahead and take out your cutting instructions from the pattern and number 1 through however many pieces you have, and you can use the numbered pins and just stick them through. And then as you're working through your project, if you need to find, say, your main panel, which you might have marked with pin number 1, you can just go find pin number 1 and then pull it out. They're also good for if you're making quilts and you have different rows. For example, a couple months ago, I was working on a quilt and I had very distinct rows. I think there were 8 different rows, and these pins would have helped for that as well. I just took a scrap of paper and wonder clipped it at the time, but if I had these pins, I would have used it for that purpose as well. So again, numbered pins, a great idea for things like quilt patterns or even bag patterns if you need to keep yourself organized. Anyway, that's the notion of the week, and I've linked to in the description a page on Amazon with a lot of different styles of the numbered pins in case you didn't like the ones that I showed with the dress forms, but you might be interested in a different style. I have a link to Amazon where you can see other different looks of numbered pins in case you are still interested in the numbered pins. All right, so the Minikins challenge for the month of April is for the Dab Essential Oil case, and this is the storage size of the case. I've linked to in the description in case you have already made a Dab Essential Oil case or you plan on making one during the month of April, just so you can go ahead and link up and post your photo to be eligible for the $100 prize. My mom actually made 2 of these, which I was super happy. This was the first project that she's made from one of my patterns. I personally use mine for essential oils, but I've seen people use them for other things like nail polishes, little thread spools, other sewing supplies. And so the case does have other purposes, but I definitely, since I'm a huge fan of using essential oils myself, I definitely wanted that for myself so that I could store all of mine. And actually I have to make another one of these because I have overflow into another case of I just have too many essential oils around the house. But anyway, I've linked to it in the description in case you'd like to participate in the Minikins challenge, or if you just want to see other versions of the Dab Essential Oil case. All right, it's Danny's favorite part of the Sunday show. We'd like to ask you now, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, to go ahead and type either Bag Lady or Bag Dude in the comments right now. Stand proud and let us know that you're part of the bag making community. And I had a couple emails in the last week asking how to enter the giveaways at the end of the Sunday shows. And it's really simple. However, you do need to do one thing, and it doesn't matter if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, but you do need to sign up for a free account in order to leave a comment. So whichever social media platform is your favorite, just go ahead and sign up for a free account if you don't have one already, and then you'll be able to leave a comment. Depending on what device or computer you're using, the comment area may be at the bottom of the screen, or it might be directly underneath the video. I know, for instance, when I'm using my desktop computer, the comment area is right underneath the video screen, and when I'm looking on my cell phone, it tends to be at the very bottom of the screen if you just scroll all the way down. So those are a couple good tips for either leaving comments or responding to the giveaway questions at the end of the show. So the fabric that I've added to my stash this week is a fat quarter bundle of fabrics. The fabric line is called Homeward, and it's designed by Natalie Barnes, and it's got, as you can see, lots of bright colors as well as some great neutrals in the stack as well. So I'm going to jump over to the side camera and show you what the fabrics look like. Okay, so there's a lot in the stack, as you can see, so I'm going to flip through these rather quickly so that we can get through all of them. I like that they're this is the big print from the fabric line, so I could definitely see this one made in a bag with maybe some, I don't know, maybe black cork or a natural colored cork. Let me flip through the neutrals first. So this one's a really fun one. I'm not sure if it's showing up well on camera, but it's a white on white print, which is really great and interesting, and also perfect for fabric dyeing if you're into that. And all of these kind of have like an almost sketchy quality to them. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay them out one by one. I like that there's so many that are black and white in the fabric line, because I feel like the black and white prints really make the colors, when we get to the colors, pop. Oops. Okay, so now we're going to start on the colors. So it's kind of a rainbow mix of, I'm not sure if you call these jewel tones or what. This one is really cool also. Kind of has a definite hand-drawn quality to it. I really like, my favorites in this bundle are definitely the blues and the greens together. I think they're really pretty. I like that this one's kind of like a pixelated design. Camouflage, yeah, Danny's suggesting it's kind of like a modern camo. This one's really cool also. And then there's two big, actually one bigger piece. Let me see if I can flip this one open. Oh, this one's really cool. I hadn't opened this previously, but it's got different, almost pixelated florals. So these would be really cool for pouches or other things, because you could just cut the rectangles out and use them for the front and back of your project. So anyway, this fabric line is called Homeward. It's designed by Natalie Barnes, and let me just move those out of the way really quick. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments which pre-cuts do you buy if you buy pre-cuts. So there's a lot of options out there as far as pre-cuts. There's the little mini charms, which are the 2.5-inch squares. There's charm squares, which are 5-inch squares. Jelly rolls, which are strips of fabric from selvage to selvage that are 2.5 inches wide. Layer cakes, which are 10-inch squares. There's fat quarter bundles, half-yard bundles, and generally pre-cuts are 1 or 2 pieces of every single fabric from the fabric line, so you'll have a good representation of the line, which is great for especially quilt making. My favorite for pre-cuts, I'd have to say probably fat quarters, because fat quarters can be used for both quilts and smaller bag projects like pouches and, you know, really small projects. So that's probably my favorite pre-cut. I don't buy them super often, but certain fabric lines I definitely like to pick up one print from every fabric in the fabric line. So I have a fun announcement. The Sew Sweetness Community Recipe Book is available now, and I've linked to that in the description. I sent out a newsletter earlier this evening with that link as well. And it's free to download. It's over 150 recipes as were submitted by So Sweetness community members. We put out the call, I think it was the beginning of this year, for maybe a couple months, requesting recipes. So people sent in treasured family recipes or favorite recipes that they always make for their families. And so it's fun to see all of the recipes from around the world. And I saw Michelle Graham in the Facebook group already has printed hers out, and she made holes in the pages and already has it in a folder all set to go. So that's fun. And I already read through all the recipes, very delicious. The recipe book was actually finished thanks to Robin. So Robin Dunn collected all of the recipes, and Robin K actually put the whole recipe book together. So if you see either of those ladies on social media, I saw Robin K in the Facebook group earlier this evening, please thank them, because I know it was a lot of work, and it's so fun for all of us to be able to have all the access to all these recipes, and I can't wait to try them out, especially the desserts. Another item that I wanted to mention is I've recently started adding the So Sweetness meetup dates and times in the newsletter. So like I mentioned, I sent out a newsletter earlier today. At the end of the newsletter, all of the So Sweetness groups by state and country that are having meetups in person. So the meetups can range, so they can either be meetups at restaurants or quilt shops. I saw some that were for sewing days for projects like the Clyde Bank tote or the Oslo craft bag, or just shopping trips to quilt shops. And so I've actually put a link to the newsletter that I just sent out today in case you missed it or you're not already subscribed, so that you can see the dates and times for all of the meetups. We even have one for Denmark coming up, which is really exciting. And I know not everyone's on Facebook, which is where the general information for those meetups are. But I know a lot of you, especially that watch on YouTube, if you don't have a Facebook account, I'd like you to have that information as well. And so that's why we decided to start including that information in the So Sweetness newsletter, so that you could still be informed about local meetups that might be happening by you. So check that out after the show. There were at least over a dozen meetups coming up, and I hope to keep you aware of the upcoming meetups throughout the rest of the year, because that's super exciting. Danny's going to post a photo on the screen of a meetup that just happened in South Carolina. This is Karen, Michelle, and Lejeune, and as you can see, they have their So Sweetness bags, which is really fun. And so this is the kind of thing we're talking about. There's Lejeune watching right there. I really just want to foster friendships both online and in person, because I know I've met so many wonderful people throughout my bag making adventures that have become my friends, and I want you to have, if you're interested, have that experience as well. So definitely check out my newsletter with the times and dates of the meetups that are coming soon. So I have a book review, actually 2 books to review for today, and also some quilt patterns. These are quilt patterns that I picked up at Quilt Festival, which happened a few weeks ago in the Chicagoland area. I definitely picked up a lot of goodies when I was doing some shopping at Quilt Festival. So I'm going to jump over to the side camera and show you those quilt patterns and the 2 books. Okay, so first off, these are 4 quilt patterns that I purchased from Quilt Addicts Anonymous, and I had a hard time narrowing down. I think I had probably 8 or 9 patterns in my hand, and Danny was like, "Are you going to have time to make all those?" And I was like, "No." So I narrowed it down to 4. This first one is called 1870. I really liked this one because I'm not sure if you can tell from the quilt pattern cover, but this is all solid fabric, and then there's this stripe of sort of like a chevron print. I liked this because it looked really quick to put together, and I thought I could also use it for like a side border in some other quilts, and your leftover cuts will make 2 pillows, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. I love this quilt, Hugs and Kisses. I love that it's so graphic. I was trying to think of what fabrics that I would use. There's so many, we were talking about pre-cuts earlier, there's so many fat quarter bundles that would definitely look great in this particular quilt. This is actually a mini quilt. I saw the actual quilt sample in the booth, and it's tiny. I know it's hard to tell from the cover, but these are all itty bitty, really little pieces. So again, I thought, I don't know how quick of a project it is, but in my mind I was thinking, okay, quick project. And I love using solids, so that caught my eye. And there was also a sample of this particular quilt in the booth as well. I feel like, I don't want to say that the quilt pattern cover doesn't do the quilt justice, but seeing the actual quilt on the wall, it looked amazing. So I definitely had to pick up this quilt pattern as well. And then two books that I wanted to talk about today are all about designing your sewing space. So I'm going to talk about this one first. It's called Creating Your Perfect Quilting Space. And I will say before I open this one up, this one in particular I feel like is more of a book to take out of your local library. So there's information, there's a little bit of overlap in the two books. So the first half of the book is talking about storage ideas and what to think about when you're looking to organize your sewing space. So tool storage, fabric, book, and magazine storage, that's all talked about over here. I really appreciated the portions, and this is in the second book as well, about how to stand and sit when working on your projects so that you're not causing strain to your back or to your hands. There's some formulas, I guess, based on how much that you have in your sewing room and how much space that you'll need. And the second part of the book is kind of like real life situations of makeovers that have been done. So it's kind of like profiles for different people, what they do. So for instance, in this situation, Jane is a young stay-at-home mom of 2 preschoolers. She was sewing in her bedroom. As you can see, this is her before picture, her long arm, and that's her bed right there. So this is just talking about what they did, how they organized a different sewing setup for her so that she wasn't in her bedroom. So the second half of the book is all profiles like that. So I guess it sort of depends on if you kind of match any of these profiles, because if you don't, I don't know. I'm sure some of the information will be useful, but it's more useful if you have that exact situation or the room space in mind. So I'm not going to flip through the rest of these. These are just the real life bedrooms, the before and after photos. It was interesting looking at the before or after photos, but as you can probably tell by the cover from both of these books, it's a little bit dated. I think in particular that second book is more, I guess, 80s looking. The information is useful. I definitely couldn't see my sewing room exactly in these spaces just because of I guess the time frame. The second book was called Dream Sewing Spaces, and this one I thought was really interesting. So it has some other information, similar overlap to that first book that I showed you, talking about different storage solutions and how to organize your sewing space. It also had a worksheet for figuring out how much room that you needed. I thought it was really interesting though, especially because it talked about different configurations. Let me find a configuration, and you don't necessarily have to have a sewing room, quote unquote sewing room. You might have, as you can see, you might have use of a linen closet, a breakfast nook. So basically making these areas work for you so that you can still have a dedicated sewing space while using the rest of your house for what else you need to use it for. So the parts that I found the most interesting were talking about the configuration. So L shape right here, this is shaped like an L. Right here, end of a hallway. Where's the U-shaped? Okay, so U-shaped is right here. This is a U-shape as well. This is in a butler's pantry. But talking about a U-shape in the sewing room is really interesting as well. And I liked seeing all of these illustrations for the room layouts. I'm just going to flip through a couple of more layouts. So this is called the Ultimate. As you can see, this room is gigantic, but just different planning for storage spaces. So that, as you can see, most of the room's utilized. It's not just shelves along the wall and then like a blank space in the middle. As you can see, every bit of this room is utilized for something, like the cutting table right here. My dream is to have a dedicated cutting table one day. That just sounds amazing, but not something that we have room for right now. So let me flip through. I wanted to show you some of the other layouts. They're talking about cabinetry right here and different furniture that you can use. I feel like this one is also potentially a find for checking out at your local library if you have access to this from your local library. Different materials for surfaces. I guess this is more applicable if you're intent on doing like a whole renovation in your sewing studio. And they talk about wall organizers, and right here, this would be really useful for your quilting rulers, that kind of thing. Pegboard, lighting it talks about. So this book is like super in-depth. All the things that you'll need for setting up your sewing room. Making your own cutting and pressing board, lots of helpful information in this particular book. So again, this one's called Dream Sewing Spaces. This one's called Creating Your Perfect Quilting Spaces. This one was okay, but I felt like there was tons more useful information in this particular one right here. And I do have a few other books that I have for studio organization. I didn't want to overwhelm the book review section of the show, but I'll talk about those on a future Sewcial Sunday because I think it is important. And as I glance around behind me, I know you can't see, but I've got tons of stuff on the floor behind me. I think having an organized sewing studio or sewing area, it doesn't have to be a separate room, is important. And not that it has to be clean at all times, but I think it's important because I definitely feel more active and like I'm getting more things done if it's neat and organized, and if I could just have things set up like stations instead of having to constantly be cleaning my area and resetting things up, because that takes a lot of time. So thinking about organizing your sewing space is important, I think. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, what would you improve in your sewing area? So maybe you want a cutting table like I mentioned previously. Maybe you need some good wall organization, because I feel like definitely using all of your vertical space is important, like having organizers maybe for thread and zippers that you can hang on the wall so that it doesn't have to take space, perhaps on your shelf. Using every bit of area in your room, including on the walls, I think is a great idea as far as getting the most out of your area. All right, so I have a demonstration for you today. My demonstration is how to attach strap anchors. It's super simple, but I feel like it can give an extra added professional look to your bags. I noticed Bronwyn, for her Sublime bag that she's making for the Sublime Bag Sew Along, is utilizing strap anchors right here in this area where I've got the tabs. So you can either use strap anchors on the front and the back of your bag for handles like this. You can also use the strap anchors on a bag that has a side strap like this satellite bag. The strap anchors could be utilized in place of the tabs. So I'm going to jump over to the side camera and show you how to install them. Okay, so I've prepared this little piece of fabric to simulate the front of the bag. I've already attached the fabric to the interfacing, which you definitely want to do first. And here's what the strap anchors look like in the package. So you'll get the 4 strap anchors as well as the washers, and I've already went ahead and pulled one out of the package. So I've gone ahead and linked to in the description where you can find these strap anchors, and they come in different shapes and finishes. So if you're not set on this particular shape, there's other shapes out there. This is the gunmetal finish, but there's a rose gold, a rainbow, silver gold, all sorts of different options. So this is basically in place of a purse tab, because it's got this portion that you attach to the bag, and it's already got where you might use a D-ring or a triangle ring. It's already got this ring where you can attach to your strap. So this piece would go on the bag. As you can see from the back, there's 4 prongs. I've already bent 2 of the prongs down, and I'm going to go ahead and bend the 2 bottom prongs out. So these are going to go through the right side of your fabric in a similar nature that you would do with your magnetic snaps, as your magnetic snaps usually have prongs. And I'm going to be using 2 of the washers. So the washers are just going to go vertically. Normally with the magnetic snaps, my washers go, I guess, kind of horizontally. So this is the reason that I bent the prongs down first, is so that I could easily mark the placement on my fabric. So you'll need to decide where you want to attach this. I'm just going to arbitrarily attach this like so. And I'm just going to use my pen to mark the prong placement. There we go, it's working. Okay, and you want to just make sure wherever you're attaching the strap anchor, you do the same thing on the front and the back of the bag, or on the side panels, the same measurements. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use my seam ripper to make small slits in the fabric, and as always, you always want to start making smaller slits, you can always make smaller slits bigger, but if you accidentally make your slit too big, you're kind of stuck. And I usually like to follow up any slits that I make through fabric with a bit of seam sealant, and I'm using Fray Block here. Just going to put a little dab on, oops, that was a big dab, on each of the slits. So this strap anchor is going to go through the right side of the fabric. I'm going to get my iron started because I'm going to reinforce that a little bit too. So let me let that dry for a little bit. I'm also going to use a piece of ultra firm interfacing, so you can use either Peltex or I'm using Decoville Heavy here. I'm also going to mark the prong placement on the ultra firm interfacing. So you just want the interfacing to be larger than your piece so that you have enough to hang on to. And I also cut a piece of Shape Flex that was bigger than the ultra firm interfacing. So that's just a little bit of extra to reinforce this piece as well. And of course I also need to make slits through that interfacing. Okay, so this is going to go through the right side of the fabric, and as I mentioned, if your slits are too small, you can always go ahead and make them bigger. Mine looks fine, so I'm going to go ahead and flip to the wrong side of the fabric where you can see the interfacing. I'm going to go ahead and slip that Peltex on. It looks like that one needs to be made bigger. Okay, then I'm going to place the washers, and then I'm going to open those prongs outward. And you can either, these were easy enough to do by hand, but you could also lean them up against the edge of your table. And I'm going to go ahead and take the adhesive side of the Shape Flex and just go ahead and cover that whole piece right there. So I'm just using this to kind of give some extra reinforcements. So, since this strap anchor was quite a bit larger than magnetic snaps, just to make sure everything's not moving at all in the finished bag. So that's what it looks like on the wrong side of the fabric, and that's what that finished strap anchor looks like on the right side of the fabric, and it's ready to just go ahead and insert your purse strap, adjustable strap, or handles, whatever you're adding to your project. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. As you can see, it's really super simple to attach the strap anchors to your fabric, and I feel like it'll do a little bit of extra to spice up your finished bag. So I'd like to invite you now, if you enjoy the live shows, if you enjoy our bag making and sewing tutorial videos, if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit the share button right now and share this sewing video with your other sewing friends on Facebook. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, if you're not already subscribed, I hope you will consider subscribing so that you can be the first to hear whenever we go live or whenever we post a new video to the channel. Regardless if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, if you could at least hit the like button, which is the little picture of the thumbs up. The likes, shares, and subscribes help us out so much, so thank you so much for doing that. So I wanted to announce the winner of last week's giveaway. We actually had two winners. So the two winners were Janelle Notter and Arlene Wade. So congratulations to Janelle and Arlene. I've contacted you both on social media and just waiting to hear back so that we can send out your prizes. We are actually going to be skipping, I sincerely apologize, we're going to be skipping the live questions for tonight's show. I have a bearded dragon named Flash. She's our only pet, and she was at the vet this past Thursday for a vet visit. Some things going on, and I feel most comfortable going to take her to the emergency vet. So we're going to do that right now just to make sure everything's okay. But we are going to do a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away that fat quarter bundle of homeward that I showed you earlier on the show. So all you have to do to enter that giveaway is answer my question in the comments on either Facebook or YouTube. I'll draw one randomly drawn winner at the end of the day this Saturday, and I'll announce the winner's name on next Sunday's show. So all you have to do to enter the giveaway is answer this question in the comments. What is your favorite spring activity? So mine is definitely bike riding. I'm anxious. We had rain today. It was warmer, but we had a bunch of rain all day. I'm anxious to get my bike out and start bike riding. So again, I apologize for the lack of the live questions on tonight's show. We will be back on Tuesday answering live questions. So if you have one for me, hopefully you can sit tight till Tuesday and I'll be answering the questions live. So Thank you so much for joining me for Sewcial Sunday. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I hope you have time to get a lot of sewing in. Happy sewing. Bye, everybody.